This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Oh my God!
Welcome into the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. On today's episode, got some news and notes for you. A lot of things going on with New Japan, ROH, WWE, and some things going on with NXT, so you're going to want to stick around for that. Of course, we review Raw and Smackdown, but we did have Crown Jewel. That took place on Friday afternoon. We're going to discuss that. Not going to go real in-depth. We're just going to talk about some highlights regarding that. But doing this podcast with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. I know he's got a great intro here saved for us. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
I came to play. There's a price to pay. Time for you to get down on your knees. I'm here to say bye to the good old days. They're never coming back. Watch your future.
What up, cuz? Man, if we could just get you some hair like The Miz, it'd be great.
The Miz, I think, is on his way to a big 2019, bro. I think his stuff and what he's doing in terms of his personality, his character, what he brings to the table, Miz TV, I think he's got the total package, and I think he's poised for a big year. And even if he doesn't come away with the victory after a feud versus AJ Styles, the Miz versus AJ Styles, something I want to see.
Yeah, I think The Miz is, I think you're right. He is primed to have a massive year. I'm just wondering if WWE will get behind him and give him the push that he deserves. I mean, you look at what he did with the Intercontinental strap, right? He brought that back to relevance. That became a legitimate thing. Seth Rollins now holds it, and holds it with pride because of a guy like The Miz. So I think you're right. I think you're spot on. Absolutely. Early November. The Doc is calling it right now. The Miz is primed for a huge 2019.
Real quick, I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on Crown Jewel.
No.
I think you wrote it perfectly. It really was a throwaway show. Yeah. I did not watch it. I definitely kept up a little bit with the updates, and you look at it and you say, wow, man. A main event headlined by guys in their 50s and late 40s is just not an event that you really can invest in. But some news was made along the way with the show. I mean, when you look at it in totality, not a lot of major news happened, but some significant injuries and things like that. I mean, Triple H went through that matchup basically with a torn pectoral. You just look at it and you go, wow, WWE can put on a show like that, make buku bucks, and walk away and continue as if, nothing really happened.
Never happened.
And it's just the way it is now. It's just strictly business. And that's what it was. It's just another show that is out there for the bottom line. The thing that maybe they can do is they can just do these shows, but not take away so many segments from Raw and SmackDown to promote it. I just think that not a lot of people are invested in an event like Crown Jewel to run segments on your marquee shows. Just have an event. These are the matchups. These are the things that are going to happen. Maybe one show on each platform to hype it up.
It's a glorified house show. It's got pyro. It's got a massive stage. It's got a different setup than what you're probably used to if you go to a WWE live event. But it's a house show. So just like you said, promote the house show like you normally would. If you want to tie a storyline in here or there, do that. But it's just a house show. The thing is, this house show, they're getting paid, like $40 million for it. So that's what makes it a little bit different. And in this house show, some highlights that we just wanted to kind of touch on real quick. Renee Young was allowed at the broadcast booth, and I say allowed because in Saudi Arabia, they do have different laws and different rules for women. So I found that kind of odd that she was allowed there. I think it's great for her. I think it's good for WWE for saying, you know what, she's part of this broadcast team. She needs to be there. Saudi Arabia, the actual name of the country, was not mentioned. It seems as though it was a directive straight from Vince. They did mention Riyadh, but they never said Saudi Arabia. If you go back and you rewatch it, you'll notice they never say the name of the country. Shane McMahon. So this is where the news starts to unfold here. Shane McMahon inserts him into the greatest World Cup match, and he ends up winning. So Miz goes down with a feigned ankle injury. It's about to be a DQ, and Dolph Ziggler's about to win the whole thing. Shane McMahon says, no, it's not going down like this. Inserts himself. Now, this is interesting because this is going to play into a storyline that you're going to see unfold at Survivor Series. So if you don't want any spoilers, tune out right now and then come back in a few seconds. So Shane is going to eventually turn heel, and it's all going to be based around him being called the greatest in the world, winning the greatest in the world cup. So he's going to start to believe his own hype, and then will turn heel. Brock Lesnar beats Braun Strowman in 2 minutes, much to the chagrin, I think, of every WWE fan. In my notes, I have FML, bro. Like, for real.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. But five F5s and beat him in 2 minutes. What?
See, here's the thing, and here's the problem, I think, with this, in the way this went down. Obviously, we all know, and Kenny told us here on previous episodes, this was probably part of a long-term plan that maybe could have been executed. Maybe they would have had Brock take it off of Roman Reigns because of the fact that Brock is involved with the UFC. Mm-hmm. And now Daniel Cormier also mentioned the WWE belt after his latest fight. So you can tell there's some ulterior motives here with this.
Cross-promotion.
But here's the problem, okay? You still got this other character named Braun Strowman. And how is this guy going to be
super over?
Exactly. How is this guy going to be legitimately respected going back and forth every single week on Raw with any of his feuds? A victory over Braun doesn't mean really anything anymore. You basically delegitimized your biggest star by having him lose in 2 minutes without really getting any significant offense. This kind of match, you could have, done some swerves or done something a little bit more creative, but you had to show at least Braun kind of getting in some offense, kind of making you believe that he could have won, because he's got to go back there and have feuds with some top guys. But right now, I mean, how are you going to seriously believe that Braun Strowman can win the title when every time he goes up against Brock Lesnar, he doesn't get the win?
Right. He loses quick.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. It's just like when Roman Reigns sat there and got in the it was like 5 different matches against Brock to win the strap. Eventually, you're probably going to win one of these, right? You would think. How does that help the character, though? It doesn't help the character. It doesn't help Roman Reigns' character, just like this doesn't help Braun Strowman's character. You can only lose to a guy so many times before the fans just check out. And look, I really wanted Braun to win this. I thought this would be the perfect time to put the belt on Braun. Let Brock chase Braun. Let that be the story. Why not? Why not? Braun is over. Fans love him. Let Brock chase him. Make Brock do some work. Instead, you're going to put the strap on this guy.
Social media was pissed.
Yeah, you're not going to see him on TV. Do you realize in his last title reign, do you know how many matches we got to see on television, him defending that strap?
Less than 6?
0.
Oh, wow.
Zero.
Nothing on television.
No,
wow.
Nothing. He only shows up for pay-per-views. Like, he'll show up and he'll cut his promo, but he never defended his belt on TV. That's where the majority of your viewership is. It's on USA. It's on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's where you get your views. That's how you sell your pay-per-views. And he defended it 0 times in his last title reign, which was like 450 some days.
I can't recall a belt that has been so delegitimized in the Universal title. It's not important. They put it on people that the fans don't like. And there were some articles that were really out there that were saying, look, if Vince doesn't like the fans and he keeps doing things that the fans don't like, there's one way to vote. And that's cut your WWE Network subscription. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't think they've done anything to that level where I would cut it. But I would see
but
that,
it's
hey,
frustrating right now, isn't it?
If, subscribers, leave in droves and you go, well, if the bottom line is affected, that might be one way. If like 200,000 people just automatically cut off the WWE Network, that's a lot of money. And so money talks. But at this point in time, I don't think that there's going to be too much influence that the fans have. And I think sometimes Vince revels in it and does things that are like, great, I can't wait to see these guys boo and stuff like that. But in the end, Brock Lesnar is a guy that's going to be in the mix no matter what. Fans' demands be damned. They don't care. Right now, Brock Lesnar is the Universal title holder, and that's just the way it is.
It's a little bit unfortunate for all of us fans.
Yep.
Main event, like you said, was a bunch of dudes over 50 looking like they were over 50. Everybody but maybe Shawn Michaels. He looked like he was in his 40s.
And the way that match went down, I give him credit because Triple H got hurt, and so the way they sold it was Kane threw him through the table, through Triple H, through the announce table, and then Shawn Michaels was left to fend for himself. Now, of course, they obviously look slower, similar to Kurt Angle in his match. These guys are slower, but to see Shawn Michaels in that ring, it was cool.
Yeah, a lot of nostalgia there. Triple H ends up tearing his pectoral muscle.
Brutal, bro.
5 minutes into this match. This match went on for almost 30 minutes. Tears his man titty 5 minutes in, and then you can say what you want to say about Triple H. We all say a ton. I crush the guy regularly because I feel like sometimes he puts himself over instead of putting the younger talent over. He's one tough SOB, man. He played through a busted up, right chest muscle, which then connects to your arm. If you noticed, if you watched it, you knew that he was hurt because he just left his right arm dangling. Like, that's his dominant hand, too. So how many times did he want to go do something and went to go reach with his right and just it wasn't there because there's nothing connecting the shoulder and the bicep and the chest and everything all together. He's a tough son of a bitch. That's what Triple H is. Most people, most WWE superstars would not have that luxury to be able to continue to wrestle through that. Dr. Chris Amann was there checking on him. Look, Triple H he's like an executive. He's like Vince's number 2 guy. He says, I want to go. They're going to let him go. He was able to go. In the end, Triple H, Shawn Michaels end up winning. I'm really kind of over all of this, though. Can we just, look, Crown Jewel was not worth your time. Don't bother watching it. We just gave you the highlights. Let's move on to Raw. Raw opened with Baron Corbin. This segment went on way too long. It was a 20-minute setup for Survivor Series, or in my notes here, whatever I wrote there. It's not Survivor. I don't know what happened there. It should have been down to about 10 minutes. Basically, what it is we've got the notion of Team Corbin versus Team Angle. They're fighting to see who's going to represent Raw. They're going to take on Team Shane. I've got Sean in my notes. I don't know what I was doing with these notes, dude. This is horrible. This is all going on at the next pay-per-view, which is Survivor Series. That's pretty much what you need to know. It was 20 minutes. It should have been smushed down to 10. It's what it was. Wasn't anything great. After we got a bunch more crap, like honestly, this first hour was pretty horrible.
Thumbs down, yeah.
We get Seth Rollins with an absent Dean Ambrose versus AOP for the tag belts. So you're probably scratching your head like, what the hell's going on here? Maybe Dean will come out and it'll be cool. No, AOP beats the hell out of Seth Rollins. They end up pinning him for the belts. We now have new tag champs. And to me, this is me, I think you have to reset the tag division. It's been all over the place. You essentially put your tag belts on one guy. That was Seth Rollins because Dean Ambrose was like, I'm out of here. You have to reset this. Like, Raw's tag division is so horrible right now.
Yeah, you got to elevate some more tag teams is what you're saying. Give them a little bit more. When you talk about the mid-card and the lack of efficiency and the way they're being used, the tag team has been absolutely horrible. I mean, look, the B team was right up there in terms of entertainment. People wanted to see it. They've been basically AWOL for the last month.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't just all of a sudden ascend a team like the B team and then all of a sudden just cut them off like the face of the earth. It's like I don't think there was an injury, and I think that team was on the verge of doing some things, and I think you're absolutely right. Definitely need a reset. They can be emphasized because tag team wrestling, it has been a staple of WWE, and I do think having the Authors of Pain win it is definitely something that's good for business.
It is good for business. It's weird, though. You see how the tag teams are presented on Monday Night Raw, and then you see how the tag teams are presented on SmackDown. And we're going to talk about a match that happened on SmackDown between the Usos and the New Day, and it's just so weird. It's this total dichotomy of just polar opposites. The way that they are shown and the way that they are presented, it's kind of frustrating if you're a fan of tag team wrestling. Dolph Ziggler and Elias, they end up squaring up, and this was a pretty good match here. I enjoyed it myself. There was a lot of back and forth. Eventually, Ziggler connects with a zigzag for only Elias to get a boot on the bottom rope, so he just escapes, and then Ziggler gets frustrated, and his frustration is his undoing. Elias ends up catching him with a drift away. He steals a victory. I think at this point, it's safe to say we're in full push mode for Elias. And I just kind of want to know what your reaction was to the crowd reaction. When Elias showed up on the top of the ramp before he came down and he did his opening monologue, his opening promo, the crowd was so into it. He did such a good job playing off the crowd. He just sat back, let them get it all out of their system, and then he chimed in, and then he got them riled back up, and then he played along with them. I thought it was incredible. He showed something that most talent don't have, the ability to hold the crowd, play the crowd, and turn them up and turn them down when he needs to.
All due respect to that crowd in Manchester. Sometimes after a show like Crown Jewel, you maybe have a letdown. This was a taped show, obviously because it was done in England, but the fans overseas definitely respect WWE, and they're kind of most of the time in line with how the storylines are, and that's just speaks to the global reach of WWE, is that they're in the know. They know, okay, Elias is an over guy, let's really show support, and sometimes because of the fact that WWE's not, performing shows all that much, especially in front of the audience, maybe once or twice a year. They get into it, and a guy like Elias definitely benefited from it. And like you said, super talented, on his way to some great things, similar to The Miz in 2019.
Yeah.
On his way, bro. He's over.
He is. He's super over. I hope his in-ring work gets fine-tuned just a little bit more. Ronda Rousey ends up coming out. She cuts a promo on Becky Lynch. Now, this was probably her most solid promo that she has cut in her time in WWE. I thought it was very good. Nia Jax comes down to the ring. Ember Moon ends up coming down to the ring. Both of them claim rights to challenge Ronda Rousey after Survivor Series. This ends up leading to a match between Nia and Ember Moon. Nia ends up beating Ember Moon. Tamina then comes down. It gets a little bit awkward in the ring now. You've got Tamina staring at Nia, Nia staring at Tamina, and Nia's like, don't do it. And she's just kind of mouthing some stuff to Tamina. Next thing you know, Tamina ends up hitting a Samoan drop on Ember Moon and then slaps her in the Boston Crab. And Nia Jax at this moment now turns heel, starts dropping elbows onto the back of Ember Moon. The two end up destroying Ember Moon. They end up leaving, high-fiving. So now you've got two dominant forces in women's wrestling as a partnership here. It's like when a hurricane meets a tornado. It's going to be crazy. So Tamina and Nia appear to have some type of tag team partnership.
Obviously, with their relation, their Samoan heritage and things like that, no problem. But does this do anything for you to change your thoughts on Nia Jax? I know a lot of people don't like her. They just think that her in-ring work is dangerous and sloppy.
I think her in-ring work is dangerous and sloppy. I think same thing with Tamina's. No, and neither one of them are over. I don't think either one of them can cut very good promos. No, it does nothing for the character for me. I find it interesting, though, that you pair two of the more physical opposing, or imposing is the correct word I should be using, the two most physical imposing women on Raw together. I find this to be super interesting. Like, what are you going to do here? Are you going to create... there's been rumors and speculations that we're going to have a women's tag team division. Is this what we're going to get? Because if so, these could be your first two women tag team champs. And I think that would be solid. I think that would help set it off. You have started to see more and more women come together as groups and units. There's a reason why we have the Riot Squad. There's a reason why we have, or some foreshadowing here, had Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose as a unit. There is a reason why they still haven't, after all the teasing, haven't broke up Sasha and Bayley. And now they've got Natalya in that mix as well. There's a reason all these women are together. The Bella Twins are back. There's a reason. It's just you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop here, and they announce that there's going to be a female tag team division. Let's fast forward to the main event here. Drew McIntyre essentially dominated Kurt Angle. Ends up forcing him to submit. Now, did you like how this ended up playing out for both Drew and Kurt? Because in my opinion, I think this is awesome for Drew McIntyre, and I think it does good for Kurt Angle. And I'll explain. For Drew, you didn't have a guy lose to another nostalgia act, right? Kurt Angle is a nostalgia act. Fans love Kurt Angle because he's Kurt Angle. Drew McIntyre is, I don't want to say he's brand new on the scene because he's been here before, but he has been reintroduced, and he looks very, very good. Very, very dominant, cuts an awesome promo, has very good in-ring work. He's a guy who's primed to get a nice push to the top. I can argue with you right now that he probably should have interfered in that Crown Jewel match and took the belt. Different conversation for a different day. Now with Kurt, him losing, I think it does some good for him. It makes him, you can work this into a storyline with him where he is desperate. He knows he's losing a step. He looked really slow in this match, and I don't know if it was just him or if it was his body. I'm not sure. He looked really slow in this match. I think it sets up nice for him because you can make him out to be the desperate guy who's doing whatever it can take to sit there and compete with the younger guys. And it makes me think that maybe this all wasn't kayfabe. Maybe a lot of this was real. Maybe Kurt is done. I'm not sure. What's your take on this?
I kind of had the sense when I reviewed it and kind of watched it because it was so one-sided that you wanted to really start in a way to establish Drew McIntyre as a legitimate force. And so he's a main event guy. This is a guy with the look. And so sometimes you have talent like Kurt Angle to just put over a guy like Drew McIntyre, and you get some of that rub. The fact of the matter is people do know Kurt Angle. He is a name, and he is a guy that has done some great things in the ring. And even though he's, per se older, the character of Kurt Angle still has weight. And so, when you see him, people like his character. They like seeing him. And so to have Drew McIntyre then come in and destroy him, you now set forth the notion that this guy can compete with the likes of Braun Strowman, can be a main event guy. And so that's just the perfect way to do it. Sometimes you just need to have guys, lay down and put guys over and to get some rub. I think Drew McIntyre probably didn't need it as much. You could have maybe had Kurt Angle with some offense, but to do it this way, I had no problem because this is the track that Drew McIntyre needs to be on. Mm-hmm. Drew McIntyre is a main event guy. He's got the look. He is the prototypical Vince big man. So all in all, I like the way Raw ended because of the main event. Drew McIntyre can do some good things because he's the total package. Can speak, the look, and he's a bad mofo in that ring. He can do some things now. We just got to hope he stays healthy and utilizes that push. I do see some big title runs for him in the next couple years.
Yeah, I do too. I think
and it's believable.
I think he's going to be a main event player.
Yep.
For sure. Overall, Raw for me was It was just kind of, I don't know. Like we said earlier, the first hour was a slug. It was so boring. In the second hour, you started to kind of pick it up a little bit, and there were a couple matches that were solid. But overall, storytelling-wise, I'm just left scratching my head.
I concur. Let's talk about SmackDown.
All right, SmackDown. SmackDown's interesting because it opens with Paige, who introduces Shane McMahon, who comes out as the best in the world. And this was awesome because the Manchester crowd was so into it for Paige. Shane comes out, and next thing you know, you're getting a ton of boos, and you're getting CM Punk chants, which I thought was awesome. They run through the Survivor Series card, and then they introduce Daniel Bryan as the SmackDown captain for the 5 versus 5 match that'll take place at Survivor Series. Miz interrupts this, and in the end, they're both named co-captains. I like this. I think this is fun because you have to remember, they have a rivalry that has spanned forever now. Now they're forced to work together. This is going to come back up and bubble back up later on in the show. It's a little bit interesting what we have going on here. In a crazy, awesome, great, just nuts, absolutely manic match, the Usos end up beating New Day to be tag team champions, or to be tag team captains. And this is for the Survivor Series tag team match. I believe this is going to be an 8-man tag, or it's going to be a 10-man tag. Anyways, the Usos are now captain. This might be the match of the week. You're going to have to stay tuned and find out. But this match was incredible. A ton of hard hits, a ton of high flying, a bunch of moves. This match was absolutely awesome.
Real quick, I just want to get your sense because it's something that now looks to be formulaic. Basically, Survivor Series is basically SmackDown versus Raw, and you have the champions fight each other. You're going to have tag team action. You're going to have one traditional Survivor Series match, men and women. Are you okay with the Survivor Series setup? It seems formulaic now. I kind of like it in terms of the fact that you kind of know what you're going to get, and potentially speaking, if the rumors are true, I think it's been announced that it's going to be AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar again,
right.
And you got Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. I like it, but you just kind of also want a little bit of a new wrinkle when you look at Survivor Series. It's shaping up to be something cool. I'm just not sure exactly yet how I feel about the Survivor Series formula.
It is formulaic.
Last 2 years, it's going to be kind of similar, plug and play in terms of what kind of matches you want to see.
Exactly. I don't know if I don't like it or if I do like it. It's just kind of one of those things to me. It's there. Look, you're going to get AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar, which last year was probably one of the best matches of the year. It was a top 5 match of the year. So it should be another good one. Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey should be good. Becky Lynch can go with anybody. I think she can help carry Ronda in this match. You have a lot of solid tag teams. It's going to be interesting to see how this card actually plays out. But what you're going to get, this should be a good card because it's all your top guys getting match time. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you've got to give any match time to any of the mid-card guys or any of the lower-level guys. Like, these are all guys who are either champions or should be in the mix for a championship. So it's all top guys. Becky Lynch ends up coming down. She cuts a promo on Ronda Rousey and says that she will make her bitch. I thought this was a phenomenal promo. Becky got so worked up, so wrapped up, and it's awesome to see the people who are either from the UK or from Ireland or from Scotland. It's awesome to see them get the love when they're over in Manchester, because the crowd was absolutely ballistic. She then calls out to the back looking for anybody to fight. Anybody want to fight me? Come out here and fight me. Next thing you know, Sanity's music hits, and we're all kind of like, what the hell is going on here? Deep down, you knew what it was. You knew what was coming. You knew Nikki Cross was going to come running out the back. And the best part, I think, of all of this, Sanity's music hits. Becky Lynch is standing in the ring. She's got her whole I'm the man routine going on. She doesn't look phased at all by Sanity. She's like, okay, cool. 3 crazy dudes. What do you want? I don't care. She's just looking at them like burning holes through them. It was so awesome. Her to hold her character was awesome. It was incredible. Nikki Cross runs down. Nikki Cross is just going bananas. Just banana boats everywhere. She's making her debut on SmackDown. They end up having a really, really good match. This match was awesome. You should go watch it. Becky sold for most of it, which I didn't really like, but I think it did a really good job putting Nikki Cross over. In the end, Becky gets Nikki in the armbar and gets her to tap. Becky gets the win, and she moves on. I thought it was a really good debut for Nikki Cross. I thought Becky Lynch did a phenomenal job.
The match between those two is going to be awesome. One to see.
Yep, absolutely. Next, we've got Andrade Cien Almas versus Rey Mysterio. They have a fantastic match, very reminiscent of WCW's Cruiserweight Championship matches. You got a lot of high-flying guys. You got a lot of moves. Got a lot of counters, a lot of stuff going through the air. In the end, Rey wins. Randy Orton comes from out of nowhere and hits an RKO on Rey. It seems that their feud is not done. Whatever feud this is, it looks like they're building towards it. It's interesting. I thought this was a really good match. I thought Almas carried himself well with a legend like Rey Mysterio. And if you believe the announce table, Almas looked up to Rey. Kind of interesting. I thought it was really good. Okay, this is when it gets really good for me. So Paige is in the ring. She's introducing all the ladies team for Survivor Series, for their 5-on-5 match. She's been named the captain of the team. So this is showing some really good writing right now by WWE with what they do here. Carmella comes out. Naomi comes out. Sonya Deville comes out. Asuka comes out. All of them in the ring. Next, they announce Charlotte. Charlotte's introduced. Her music plays. She doesn't come out. However, Mandy Rose comes out. Mandy Rose jumps into the ring and basically takes shots at every single woman in that ring, including Sonya Deville, her tag partner, her friend. They've been through it all. She gets to Naomi. She basically makes a comment about Jey Uso. Naomi ends up attacking Mandy. All hell breaks out. Sonya has to pull Mandy off of Naomi. This leads to some dissension between Sonya and Mandy. It looks like their friendship is teetering. You're not sure what's going to happen. I thought this was awesome, the way that they did this. You brought out all the women. You gave them their own little bit of time. You brought out Mandy Rose. Actually, you called out Charlotte. Charlotte never showed up. You have no idea what's going on with Charlotte. Charlotte's in the wind somewhere. After that loss to Becky Lynch, her mind is just rattled. And then Mandy Rose comes out and basically takes pot shots at everybody. And she basically says what we have all said at certain times about these female wrestlers and the way that they have performed. I thought it was awesome. It was so realistic. I thought it was great. And then the way it ends up ending, where Mandy looks almost heartbroken, and Sonya's like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to do. I mean, why did you just attack her? Sonya looks so befuddled and confused, and Mandy is like an emotional wreck right now. I thought it was great storytelling.
And something that, if you recall last year, what they tend to do sometimes is the teams from Raw and SmackDown sometimes show up on each other's shows. And in this situation, I think you don't have to do it too much, but one thing you can do is you got to do some more things to elevate the SmackDown women's team. I think right now, when you look at it in terms of name value and who's more over, the Raw team just has a little bit more name value. Asuka's going to be great. Sonya Deville and the women on the SmackDown team just got to kind of go over to Raw and do some things and kind of elevate it a little bit to give us, the fans, a little bit more belief that they can win. Because right now, going into it, I kind of have the sense and belief that the Raw team is just going to dominate. So I look forward to the surprises. Let's just not do it the exact same way as last year, where both teams are just showing up on each other's shows and causing it.
Attacking.
Yeah, do it a little bit more creatively. But I do think that the one thing that has to happen from now to Survivor Series is that women's side has to be elevated just a little little bit more. You got to have more from Deville and Rose and the entire team there on SmackDown. They got to be elevated just a little bit.
Yeah. So
A+ for the main event.
Yeah. Well,
wow. I thought it was great in terms of how they set it up.
I don't know about the actual match, but the ending setup was spot on, like you said. So Jeff Hardy and Samoa Joe, in my notes, they have a match. It's just a match. This is for the final spot on the Miz and Daniel Bryan's team. At the end of the match, Joe wins. He then crawls out of the ring, taunts Daniel Bryan, like gets up in his face, like belly button, all up in his nose. That's how close he was to him. Daniel Bryan ends up hitting him. They end up rolling into the ring. Daniel Bryan puts Samoa Joe in the yes lock. The Miz ends up breaking it up, and he gets punched in his head for his hard work there. Shane comes out. He gets tossed over Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan ends up leaving the ring, and he kind of looks over his shoulder, and he looks like he meant everything he just did. It kind of throws everything into disarray for The Miz, for Daniel Bryan, for Shane McMahon, and now Samoa Joe, who's on this team. I thought it was awesome. I thought the ending was a perfect setup. It was a perfect way to close out SmackDown. I thought this was great. It leads to next week where you're like, what's going to happen?
Exactly. Up until this point, I was kind of teetering on which show was better. But then once this played out, okay, for me, the verdict is SmackDown was much better. The much better show. They deserve the point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think SmackDown was overall the best show, and it wasn't even close. I think SmackDown did a supreme job here. All right, so SmackDown has a 33-26 lead over Raw. It's apparent SmackDown has been and continues to be the best show of the two. Not really sure why the ratings are dropping, but that's the case. For Jock's match of the week, you have to go see the New Day versus the Usos. I kind of teased it earlier. This was a hell of a match. It was absolutely crazy. What the Usos went through and what the New Day went through, it was awesome. The very, very end of it was spectacular. The Usos, out of breath, tired, just went through hell with the New Day. They end up grabbing a mic, and they end up welcoming them onto the Survivor Series team, and basically said, we've been through hell and back, and there's nothing but respect for you guys. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it with you guys. I thought it was a crazy good moment. I thought it was awesome.
You got 10 minutes, and you get a chance to watch one match this week. Jock recommends the Usos and the New Day from SmackDown, his match of the week. All right, hit me with this week's news and notes. What you got, sir?
All right, so Matt Riddle debuts in NXT, and it seems like WWE is going to allow him to basically be himself. On the indie scene, he was the king of all bros, and it looks like he's going to continue to be the king of all bros. Bullet Club, they no longer have the Young Bucks. They no longer have Cody. They no longer have Adam Page, Marty Scurll, or Kenny Omega. They have all left to form what is now being called the Elite. If you remember, the Elite consisted of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Now it's going to absorb all the guys I just mentioned. It's believed that the Elites have left Bullet Club to kind of carry over and do their own thing just in case they choose to go over to WWE. Now, the Bullet Club, everybody that I just mentioned from the Bullet Club, has turned down a contract from ROH. So the big money offer out there from WWE is, I think, the one that they're mulling over. WWE has made some high-dollar pitches for them. Cody, however, says that he will no longer go back and work for WWE. Rather, he's going to do his own thing, whether it be on the indie scene, maybe in ROH, maybe even stick with New Japan, but he's going to focus on All In 2 and doing whatever it takes to make that work. Speaking of New Japan has reportedly made some high-priced offers, as well as some low-appearance offers to some WWE stars like Nakamura and AJ Styles. Basically, you are going to hit the top dollar and have to do the least amount of work, similar to Brock Lesnar. Daniel Bryan. So some truth has come out about why Daniel Bryan has refused to do the Crown Jewel event, and it appears his statement is because of their homophobic views, as well as the disallowment of Sami Zayn being able to perform at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Sami Zayn, if you recall, is of Syrian descent, Saudi Arabia and Syria, internal conflict forever for what it feels like. He also said that because of them not allowing Sami Zayn to perform because of his Syrian descent, that's racist, and he won't go perform for them. And that's what I got for you for news and notes.
Great podcast recording, sir. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to, follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. I want to personally thank those that support us, the Breaking Down the Ring podcast. Follow them on Twitter at BDRcast. The Most Inappropriate Wrestling Podcast airs live every single Wednesday, 9:15 or so on the Podcast Detroit platform. Again, at BDRcast for all great wrestling entertainment there. And always we give props to the podfather of wrestling, Dennis Farrell. Follow him on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell, the Wrestling Perspective Podcast.com. He's in the know. He broadcasts with Petey Williams and also does another podcast talking wrestling with the one and only James Ellsworth. Definitely check out Dennis Farrell. He's been an integral part of this podcast as well. Anytime an event is going on the network, Raw, SmackDown, feel free to lob us a voicemail, 248-579-8686, or tag at Detroit Podcast. We greatly appreciate being small little part of the wrestling community with all the podcasts that are out there. We look forward to coming back at you next week. You've just downloaded another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You've just heard the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.